We don't have class tomorrow. Day after tomorrow, we have the Visak teaching on in memory of a great prince. That's the topic. We'll talk about the merits of the Prince Siddhartha, Shakyamuni Buddha. Also, I'll give the oral transmission of Mipa Rinpoche's teaching, sadhana of Shakyamuni. Next week, Monday and Tuesday, we have a Malakirti Sutra, and Thursday and Friday, we have the class on Uttaratantra Shastra. We have no class tomorrow. No class? Then I think you should take some rest. You should relax because it's spring. Have some tea. Don't squander your time too much, but at least have some coffee. I used to really like coffee, and then I didn't really want to, I didn't dare to have coffee anymore because they said coffee is not good for health. And then when I went to Norway and Sweden, people over there, they drink many cups of coffees. So many coffee shops everywhere. And then after being there for a little while, I wanted to drink coffee again. Nowadays, many doctors then ask me to stop drinking coffee again. I live in a rather controversial statements of whether coffee is good or not. But when you then take some break, I think when you have time, you should take some break. You can probably hear cuckoo birds in the morning, and then you can take 1 or 2 hours break, have some coffee or tea. In Tibet, we say that if you hear the sound of cuckoo, whatever things you're doing, then you will continue to do that for the whole year. Maybe it's just a saying in Tibet. So the Tibetan people usually like to get up really early in the morning and have breakfast. So they really wish that during the time they're full and having breakfast, that they can hear the sound of cuckoo birds. And then that's really auspicious. That's a sign that they will be full. But this year, when I heard the cuckoo bird, I was hungry at that time. Hopefully, I won't starve to death this year because of that sign. So I think listening to the bird singing, read books, take some rest to have a good mood, and then study.
Yana Sutra, Tanda Shitang, Urkuta, Toba Chimbur, Gilami, Tanjo, Sanji, and Jansu, Tangela, Shilm Salo, Sanji, Chudon, Kamdang, Shanchipton, Yondan Sanjim, Chenle Tamate, Tamju Gunji, Linam Dordina, Durji, and Nedan Dotako, Dotak Ramson Yete, Jimjer, Koram Chevjin, Zonji, Yerbun, Dor, Lange, Lenam, Chosum, Richard, Ojan of Lorton. Gerchu Yevali, Sanji, Le Chu, Chule, Gindan, Chule, Pabo, Tsole, Nyambo, Ishi, Kam Top Par. Ishi Teto, Shanch, Chok Top, Chok Top, Tobreva. Chok Top, Jingo Hoshan. Toshama, Dere, Tobreva. Tobreva. Stop, Madu. The Kungapam. 民族出版社出的有没有？两个觉得这里把这把，啊，觉得更个个的，是的，民族更个那个，啊，的那top子的，top是吧？多数的三千更多写出南岛南。
That's where we'll stop. That's all. The Supreme Dharma that is very difficult to hear. Now I have the opportunity to listen to it. Please grant me blessings so that I understand the profound meaning of the Dharma. Now, in order to benefit all sentient beings, let's give rise to bodhicitta. We will start the class on Uttaratantra Shastra today. I think the teaching method of teaching this particular Shastra would be a little bit different than the one that we had a class on the Mahayana adornment Shastra. Because in that Shastra we talked quite a bit about how to benefit others, and we can then talk about how to take action to benefit the society and benefit others. The Vimalakirti Sutra as well as the Lotus Sutra, it talks quite a bit about the merits of different sutras of the different bodhisattvas, and that could be quite interesting to people who enjoy listening to the Dharma from that aspect. And then when we talk about the Sigalovada Sutra and the classics of filial piety, I think those kind of teachings would be rather very fitting to the kind of mentality of worldly people, how to practically implant Dharma into their lives. But Uttaratantra Shastra, the meaning behind it is rather very profound. It is very professional, so to speak. The majority of worldly people don't really have, they're not accustomed to this idea yet. And lots of the teaching within could be quite difficult to understand, and it may sound very unfamiliar. Because on one hand, this is very much hidden in ourselves. On the other hand, is that the merit within is mostly only kept by the bodhisattvas. Although all the sentient beings do have a Buddha nature, but the teachings within are rather quite profound and far-fetched for us in some ways. So for mundane beings in our daily life, the dharmas that we heard and the dharmas that we listened to, I think it could be quite different than this one that we are listening to. And lots of people, they really enjoy to listen to the engaged Buddhism topics as well as how to practically use the Dharma into life. In this particular sutra, in this particular Shastra's teaching, I don't think I'll be able to talk too much about those, because talking about those could be then, in some ways, cover the real teaching of this Shastra. Therefore, I really hope that all of our audience should be mentally prepared, because the teaching this time would be rather a little bit different, rather very different than how we are accustomed to, and very different than our habitual pattern. So some people may not be able to understand lots of the meanings in it. You're probably flying in the air while listening to it. I really hope that not all of you are taking the airplane during listening to it. I hope that at least some of you could be taking the train as a method of commute. I think lots of people are not familiar with the terms and teachings of Buddhism. That's understandable because look at people who have never really studied finance or philosophy or physics, chemistry, and so on. If you never really got into them before and right away you jump into the university course of those, how can you understand it? But do not then feel that way, because if you are not in that profession, if you're not in that major and then do not have interest in it, how can you get to know it? When I was in school, when my teacher teach subjects that I don't like or the teacher that I don't like, then I would try to pretend that I'm sick and ask for sick leaves, or try to read other books during the class, or sleep during the class, and just try to pass the time. It is understandable because everyone's interests are very different. Everyone's incline of their habitual pattern could be very different. For some of the people in our audience, that they could have great confidence in Mahayana, and some may not. And there are people who just attended the class, they don't really know what our chanting is. Why are they chanting all of these? They may think. But for people who have interest, then they would be very interested in the chanting, and I think that all of these chanting have great blessings. I wish that I could participate in this for a longer period of time. So, for me, if you're listening to this class, even if you can't understand this class, at least if you can participate in listening to this class and receive the oral transmission, and slowly in your spare time on your own, you can go through the books again and again. With the accumulation of knowledge, later on you'll be able to understand it more. When I was in junior high school, and the first year, I couldn't understand what it was at the beginning. And on the second year, when I look back at the first year's book, I thought, wow, this is really easy. Why didn't I understand it at the beginning of the first year? And then on the third year, I felt the same about the second year's textbook. So it is the same. It is very similar to the Dharma. After you finish studying one Shastra and one text, and then look back at the text, you'll be able to have a much better understanding of the whole text. I know that yesterday a lot of you participated in the class because of curiosity. And later on, there are a lot of people who are very lovely, and they persisted all the way through and listened to the end of the class. I do feel that there are quite a bit of people. They persisted through the winter and the summer. They persisted throughout different chores and different engagement, and they had the same interest in the Dharma no matter what. I know during the time of Phuntsok Rinpoche, there are lots of practitioners who attended the class without interruption at all. The interest of listening to the Dharma is the most important in their lives. I think that is very admirable, and I welcome people like that to attend my classes. The people who are curious, who have interest, who have faith, who have joy, who have diligence to participate in the class, to listen to the Dharma. I think this kind of people are very valuable, and by listening to the Dharma, this group of people would benefit a lot for themselves as others. As I said yesterday, I quoted from this Shastra. It says that the merit that generated from generosity as well as precept and meditation could be so great, but still it is not as great as listening to even one stanza or even one word from the sutra. Therefore, I really encourage you to study, to persist in listening to this sutra, to this Shastra. I often contemplate upon impermanence. I'm not saying that there's something impermanent going on that is disturbing our classes right now, but I'm saying that it is important to have impermanence in your mind, because you never know when you will not have such an opportunity. So have the impermanence in mind. It really could help you to listen to the Dharma, contemplate in the Dharma, and develop firm understanding and unwavering faith in the Dharma. This is very important. Now, let's get into the context of Uttaratantra Shastra. Yesterday we talked about the backgrounds and history and the authors of this text. And yesterday after the class, I think that could dispel your confusion about who the author is and so on. Through different teaching evidence as well as doctrines and logics, we dispelled those confusions. Whose cell phone is ringing? Do not stare into your phone, okay? Yesterday, I heard that someone who was very diligent in studying and very good in the grade, but after playing very much on the cell phone, everything decreased. The marks as well as mentality. I noticed that the facial expression as well as the health doesn't look so good. So let you be lay practitioners or monastic, it is the best not to dwell in the Mara of a cell phone. I say that they have not. There are people who are really harming their health and their body. Maybe not suicidal, but very close to it. Some couples and camels stopped using cell phones in their classes, but I'm not sure if it's practical to then ask everyone to give up their cell phone. In the long term, I think maybe giving up cell phones wouldn't be too great. Otherwise, it seems that there are people who then slept around the staircase. They would fall asleep with their cell phone on like that. I notice them when I go up the staircase. If everyone's like that in a monastery, then you can imagine how the big cities are, how the people in the big cities are. You can turn off your cell phones during studying, especially during studying, because if your mind is not focused on the study, then how could the knowledge get into you? And what's the value of studying then? Yesterday, I wanted to tell you a story of a Sangha, of his connection to Uttaratantra Shastra. It is because of Arya Asanga we then can receive this text. It is through his wisdom as well as his realization. he has quite auspicious connection to the Tushita heaven. So the story goes like this. In the West journal of the West from the Tang Dynasty, at that time there was a person whose name is Buddha Simpa, and he was the brother of Vasubandhu. Some say that it was his brother. Some say that Buddha Simpa was the disciple of Vasubandhu. Anyhow, they both made aspiration of being reborn to Tushita heaven. Then they had a bet. They had a pact saying that whomsoever reborns in the Tushita heaven, then that person should come back and at least send some kind of message. At first, Buddha Simha then died for 3 years, and there was no message sent back from him for 3 years. And then, same as Vasubandhu passed away for 6 months, didn't have any message coming back from him either. So lots of lots of heterodox started saying that they must have been born in the hell realm then. Then Asanga went to the Tushita heaven, saying, visiting them, and Asanga asked, how come you didn't come back to send any message saying that you are already reborn in the Tushita heaven? And where is Buddha Simha? He's been gone for 3 years and didn't send any message back. And then Vasubandhu was saying that, well, he's in the outer quarter where he's been enjoying all the entertainment with the celestial beings and didn't really have any time to come back to send any message. And Vasubandhu then told Asanga, saying that Maitreya Bodhisattva, what he's teaching is just like how you teach, except that he's really pleasant to look at, and his voice is so pleasant to hear as well. You can never get bored of his voice and his teaching. See, for the point of the story is that Buddha Simpa, who had such great faith to be reborn in Tushita heaven, once he got into such an environment that is full of entertainment, he then dwelled in such entertainment and pleasure, and someone who has a realization like him forgot about all of his practices or giving any messages to Asanga. Also, Maitreya Bodhisattva's teaching is so pleasant, nobody would feel bored of listening to the Dharma teaching from him. Unlike some of us who, at the beginning, feels very interested in the Dharma. If the Dharma teacher is very humorous and tells stories and very good at teaching Dharma, then the audience won't get tired. But if the teacher is rather dry and not good at telling jokes, not good at teaching the Dharma, then I think the audience would be rather suffering quite a bit. If audience have the interest of listening to Mahayana teachings, I think in this lifetime, in our limited lifetime, it is quite precious. Sometimes I think to myself, during our limited lifetime, listening to the Mahayana Dharma is so very valuable. I understand that people have very different ideas of what is valuable and what is precious. I think that's very valuable to be able to teach and study Mahayana Dharma. I'm interested in teaching as well as learning, and during my youth, I was very much interested in studying. And I think all of our audience over here, I think you're all attracted by the teaching of compassion, by the teaching of emptiness, by the teaching of kindness, and so on. So I think since we have such interest, then we should make the aspiration of listening to the Dharma. We've studied so many texts from Sangha, from Vasubandhu, from different masters. And Maitreya Bodhisattva's teaching must be even better. And all of us who had such opportunity to listen to such teachings must have great auspicious connections to all of these masters, especially Maitreya Bodhisattva, especially his teaching. In the Sutra of Great Compassion, it says that the Buddha told Ananda, saying, in this lifetime, we are ordained as monastics and practice the virtuous actions. Then in the future lifetimes, at least in the Maitreya Buddha's time, we will definitely be able to attain realization. For people who are not even diligent, they can be the disciples of Maitreya Buddha. Some other sutras also stated similar doctrines. Therefore, I really hope that in our lifetime, on one hand, we should then make auspicious connections to Maitreya Bodhisattva and listening to his teachings. On the other hand, under the teaching period of Shakyamuni Buddha, we should then uphold the precept, such as taking ordination as a monastic. And for those of you who used to be monastic and then derobed, at least do not break your view, do not abandon your view. For those of you who don't have the opportunity to get ordained, at least you should uphold the vow of taking refuge of the three jewels and take the 5 lay practitioners' precepts. Okay, we will get into the text of the text. This text is taught by Maitreya Bodhisattva. He is the next Buddha to be after Shakyamuni Buddha in this good kalpa. And the reference commentary that we will use is the Taranata's commentary. At first, there's the main supplication. And then it talks about, after the salutation of the translator, it talks about detailed explanation of the part, detailed explanation of the last 4 points described in the 3 jewels, and then the conclusion of the explanation from these 4 parts. There are lots of teachers nowadays who are fluent in Sanskrit. Between 13th to 18th century, lots of the texts were destroyed from Buddhism, of Buddhism from different religions and historical reasons. So lots of texts were lost. But this text has its has its Sanskrit version, and then the Sanskrit name is Mahayana Uttaratantra Shastra, and the Tibetan version is Tekpo Chimpo Gyu Lami Tenchu. I think the Tibetan name sounds more fluent to me. If my Chinese is not so good, at least you should understand, because I only studied how to pronounce Chinese when I was 16 years old, and I didn't really encounter a good Chinese teacher. I only learned from a Chinese teacher when I was in junior high, but my Tibetan pronunciation is good. Okay, so the name of it, Maha means great. Yana is chariot, and Uttara Tantra is the supreme tantra or supreme continuum. But if we just say that it's a tantra, then it could be a little misleading. Therefore, the title translated into Chinese, it's actually the Mahayana. The Mahayana Ratna or treasure nature Shastra. In the full title of it is Ratna Gotra. Ratna means treasure. That means the Buddha nature or as according to Yumin Yenshu's mind mirror, it says that where is the island of treasures? It is the mind of sentient beings, because sentient beings' minds are just like the island that is full of treasures. Some people from different academic backgrounds, and they may say that all sentient beings has the characteristics of Tathagata, or the sentient beings they all possess the Buddha nature. What's the difference of it? In fact, there are no difference. And then Shastra is the commentary. That means commentary. In Tibetan, it is damju. It is a commentary. It is different than the sutras. What is a Shastra? What is a commentary then? I think I quoted this before by Venerable Vasubandhu. He said that that which subdues all the enemies of afflictions and guards against the future existence in lower realms, it is called a treatise, because it subdues and protects these two features are not found in other traditions. I think I quoted this last year in my personal Chinese Twitter. In this, it says that there are the two characteristics, the two features. The first one is subdues the enemy of afflictions. And second one is guards against the future existence in the lower realms, to protect one from being reborn in three lower realms. So this kind of commentary or treatise has such qualities that it would prevent you from falling into lower realms. Otherwise, there are commentaries nowadays in the modern world that would increase afflictions as well as would lead you to lower realms. Just as some of the popular books, they would lead you to give birth to aggression, to desire, to ignorance, and teach you how to kill people, teach you to steal or take what is not yours. So those kind of books are not called as Shastra. Also there's Mahayana at the beginning. Mahayana should be at the beginning. What is Mahayana then? As according to the adornment of Mahayana Sutra, it says that there are the 7 greatness about the great vehicle. In the 6th Paramita Sutra, it says that there are the 6 great, the great observation, the great observance, and then the great diligence, the great method, the great activities. So the rest are rather the same. The great wisdom, great enlightenment, and great activities. So those are the 7 greatness that is 7 greatness that is included in the Mahayana. Because it has these 7 great characteristics, therefore it is called the great vehicle or great chariot. That is Mahayana. There are the chariot or the vehicle of cause or the vehicle of fruition. Fruition chariot is the one that leads you to the fruition, and chariot of cause are the ones that would lead you on the path and eventually lead you to the enlightenment. Why Hinayana then? Why is it small vehicle? Because small vehicle or people whomsoever practice in the Hinayana, they only search for their personal enlightenment so that they can themselves get to the destination, but not everyone else. And from such a way, they don't see the great truth. So that's a difference between the 2 different vehicles. In Mahayana teaching, we talk about the truth of benefiting others and not falling into the 3 lower realms. And in that is called the Mahayana. If we expand too much on that, and it could be a lot more to talk about, but I'm not going to be too expanded of that. And I don't want to then extend the classes too much. And over here it's a salutation. It's a men's salutation, and it is a salutation from the translator. It is said that the text is then translated in the city of no metaphor, which in some texts it says that it is in a place in Kashmir that is translated by the great Pandita and scholar Sadhana and the great Brahmin Ranavajra. So at first then they salute all Buddha and Bodhisattvas in order to completely in order to successfully translate the whole, the entire text. When I translate, sometimes I do remember to then write this salutation at the beginning, saying that I bow down to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and sometimes I forget about it. And we will teach this following outline, or in the English version it says that it's a table of contents. In India, there was no tradition of having outlines, nor it is included in Theravada tradition. But in Tibetan tradition, table of contents or the outline is very important. And lots of great masters attach a great importance to such texts, to such outline. It is nowadays there's the mind maps that has main subject and then subsubjects. And then the subjects could also be relating back to the main topic. Just as a tree that grows branch and small branches and the smaller branches, that's very similar. So this kind of method of making mind map is very much similar to the table of contents or outline. In Western schools, if you were to write a thesis, you have to then write different outlines and different topics, different subjects, and then subtopics and subjects to then relate back to your own thesis. This is very similar to the Tibetan Buddhism's outline. In Tibetan Buddhism, this kind of method has been used for over 1,300 years. And this kind of logical threads are very similar to nowadays the Western school system in terms of their thesis writing and research writing and so on. So we're going to use the table of content, which has the outline that has the main outline, the main subject, the subsubjects, and so on. This is very easy to use and very logical. So over here, the first one is the actual commentary, which has supreme meaning, that is B2, and a B2.1 that then states the presentation of the body of the text. And the second one is B2.2 that explains a detailed explanation of the parts. And in B2.1.2, it has reference to the sutras constituting their source, and B2.1.3 says that explanation of their sequence by means of given order. For people with great or sharp capacity, they right away understand what this text is going to talk about just by reading the title. For the ones with medium capacity, after the first stanza, they will be able to understand the whole content of this text. And for the ones with lower capacity, then they will understand the text through all the verses of the text. This is the actual commentary and the presentation or the summary of the body of the text. It then says that if condensed, the body of the entire commentary consists of the following 7 larger points: Buddha Dharma and assembly, the elements, qualities, and the Buddha activity. It follows great system. It follows the step-by-step method. layer by layer, it is very clear for the teacher to teach. Similarly, to the audience, whomsoever listening to this text, they will be able to understand this text without any addition or omission of the message. So, these 7 mantras are very important. The summary of it is very important. The Uttaratantra Shastra, I think many of you probably have studied it before. It has 5 chapters. The first one is a summary, and then first of all is a summary, and then the second chapter is the chapter of Tathagata, and then the second chapter is the first of all it talks about the 3 refuges, and the last 4 vital points. The vital points of enlightenment, equality, and activities. The first one, it talks about the Buddha, the Dharma, and then its assembly. The Buddha is the one who has already perfected the 2 benefits and who attains all the merits. The second point is the sacred Dharma that has the teaching of the path and the truth of cessation, that is the Dharma. And the third point is the Sangha, the noble assembly, that has the 2 wisdoms without a retrogress. Over here, the Sangha is not the kind of Sangha that is according to Hinayana. In Hinayana tradition, they talk about the 4 monastics, which then groups the Sangha. But over here in this text, the Sangha means the continuum of the bodhisattvas, of the realized ones. There are the 20 types of Sanghas who are the refuge place of all of us, within which there are some could be retrogressed. But after the retrogress, just like how some of us could fall onto the ground, but right away get up. So over here, those are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. They're from the aspect of what you could again. And the fourth one is element, or it could be family, or the family name. Over here in this element aspect, in fact, has many aspects. In this part, although the nature of such is pure, but it is then being covered by many defilements, and therefore that is the element part. And then the next one is enlightenment. After recovering to the natural purity, then that could be called enlightenment. After the teaching and pointing out and the guidance of the Guru, you'll be able to understand the enlightened. You'll be able to get enlightened from the elements, or the seed, or the family seed, or family name that we talked earlier, the element part. Everyone is naturally was a born Buddha, was a Buddha. Everyone has this pure Buddha nature. Through the peace instruction of teacher, or through your practice, after eradicating all the defilements, you'll be able to get enlightened, and the enlightenment is the nature.
就是下面的这个菩提品当中就是讲的比较清楚。
And that part is more taught in
然后这个功德品当中讲的功德也就是这个功德呢，当我们证悟之后呢，下面我们会讲到什么呢？一个是这个发生的这个逆袭过河，还有这个色色的这个艺术过就是中国有
In the enlightenment chapter, we'll talk more about the enlightenment aspect. The next one talks about the qualities.
然后呢，就是讲到了这个事业，就是事业的话呢，因为你已经证悟了，有了这些功德的时候呢，依靠这些功德的activities 相应的这个塑化众生，或者依靠这种功德的力量呢，就是让别人也是就是马上这个证悟。
benefit sentient beings and lead sentient beings to enlightenment. So, the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, elements, enlightenment, merit, and activity, those are 7 in total. These are the 7 Vajras that will be taught in this entire body of this text. What is Vajra? Vajra is the thing that could destroy everything. There's nothing that could destroy the Vajra. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, Buddha nature, merit, and Buddha activity, all of those are all the truth that could be obtained through personal enlightenment. The nature of all of these said above are just like Vajra that cannot be broke. The points over here then says that it is relied upon words, a place where you need the support. In fact, you need the support of words to understand it. You need Chinese, English, Tibetan, Sanskrit to understand this text. So the point means this is the foundation or the support, the basis to understand this in order to lead to enlightenment. So in this part, I hope everyone could understand that the whole text is summarized in these 4 verses, that there are the 7 Vajras, that this text is divided into 5 chapters. And it has the foundation of words to lead to enlightenment. And people sometimes would have questions about what's the reference and how then could you have support for this text? Nippon Rinpoche has a text that then correlates the Prajnaparamita Sutras to this text. And over here it talks about the second point. It is B2.1.2. It says reference to the sutras constituting their source. It says that in the above order which presents them in a logical sequence, this Vajra points should be known to be derived from the sutra requested by King Dharani Shravara. The first 3 stand from its introductory chapter, and the later 4 from its chapters on the property of those who possess understanding and the victorious ones. The nature of the 7 Vajra points and the relation of all the 7 Vajra points are connected and taught through steps. The first 3 are the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and then the elements, and then enlightenment, and then the merits, and then the activity. So those are more of a step-by-step method. And that kind of step-by-step or system is taught in the Dharani Shvara Raja Sutra.
但荷兰那个翻译的呢，就是应该就是大集经里面的就是一品，就是现在也是朗读道得到的。当然，如果你没有这样的一个情况呢，不同的经典当中实际上是也有这个对应的，比如说是前面的这个
In different other sutras, they also have different. They also included them in different other sutras. And in the Great Heap Sutra, it's included in the Sutra exposing the superior mind.
实际上是这个无增无减经典当中无增无减无增无增无减还是什么？就是那个经典呢，就是也是
In the
就我们这个如来藏
Sutra of No Increasing and Decreasing Sutra.
不太多。还有呢，我们真理的讲的这个菩提啊，就是菩提的话呢，就是那个
Then the fifth Vajra point, which is enlightenment, it is taught in the Srimala Devi Simhanada
讲
Sutra.
的比较这个清楚的就是应该是这个还有呢就是我们这个刚才的
The
这样
sixth
的供的
Vajra point,
功
that
德
is
呢，
the quality or the merit, that is then taught in the Sutra of No Increasing and No Decreasing. And then the last one, activity aspect, is taught in the Sutra of Approaching the Infinite and inexpressible quality of the Tathagata. Also, they are taught in the some said that is also included in the Chinese text that is called the Supreme Refuge Sutra. Which is translated by Paramatta. I'm not sure if it's translated in English at all. At least it is not included in the Tibetan version. The number of chapters and contexts are quite similar to the Uttaratantra Shastra text. Some say that if this sutra is genuine, is a real sutra, then why Uttaratantra Shastra didn't quote it? Therefore, the sutra must be a false sutra. It's a fake. It's a fortified sutra. Then it's a counterfeit sutra, but I don't think that's a valid reason. You can't, based on whether if one sutra quoted it or not, and say if it's a fake sutra. So, this kind of steps are included in different sutras, especially according to the Dharani Shvara Raja Sutra, which is also called the Tathagata's Great Compassion Sutra. In the prologue in this sutra, it says that the three jewels that the Buddha is the one who is fully awakened, and the Dharma is the three turning of the Dharma wheel by the Buddha, and the Sangha are the immeasurable tamed disciples. So within that sutra, it talks about the three jewels. The first three points are talked in this sutra over there in the prologue, and then the rest of the four Vajra points are then talked about in the later chapters, where it talks about the 60 methods of purifying. It says that all sentient beings that has Buddha nature, and because of the intrinsic existing Buddha nature, they then can attain enlightenment. And within that 60 methods of purification, it talks about the 4 adornments, the 8 illuminations, 16 great compassions, and 32 activities of Bodhisattva. And because of those, the first one, which is the Tathagata and the 80 kinds of categorization are taught. And later on, it talks about the 16 great compassion, which clearly demonstrates their bodhi or their great compassion. You can look up from the sutras. According to different masters, they all taught very explicitly in all these different categorizations. And later on, according to different systems, and there are the teachings on the 10 powers and 4 fearlessness, 18 uncommon, 18 unshared dharma of the Buddha, which clearly shows the quality and the merits of the Buddha. And later on, it talks about the Tathagata's 32 supreme activities, which then clearly demonstrates their great activity. And from this kind of description, what do we know? We can understand the merits or the qualities of the Tathagata, which now is not seen by us at this moment, or cannot be perceived by us at this moment. In the Chinese version of the Buddha nature text, it's quoted from the Buddha, where the Buddha says, "While hidden in the mines, the pure gold cannot be seen, but eventually would be seen by those who cleanse the outer layer, who then could see the Buddha nature." So people, through practice, and then eventually they can see the Buddha nature. That's the second one. And then the third one talks about the sequence or the step. Or the steps that explains the sequence by means of given order. So why it is stated in this way? So it says that over here, from the Buddha stems the Dharma, from the Dharma the assembly of the noble ones, from the assembly the attainment of the Buddha nature, the element of primordial wisdom. This wisdom finally attained its supreme enlightenment, the power, and so on, thus possessing the properties that fulfill the benefit of all sentient beings. So why the Buddha and then the Dharma and then the Sangha? Why follow such sequence? Why then follow the sequence of the elements and then the enlightenment and then the qualities and then the benefiting activities then? It is because through the first of all, it was the Buddha who first attained full realization and enlightenment, and then he turned the Dharma wheel, just as Buddha Shakyamuni, he stated that in the play of Full, it was recorded. It says that at first he didn't want to say a word, and he was in the deer park. At the moment he attained enlightenment, he said that
那本书啊，就是当时说是我这样的这种身份
He said that profound,
我们用的一些叫做呢，现在汉语的
peaceful,
那个
stainless,
法当中是这样
lucid,
讲的，就是
and
我的感悟
unconditioned.
为法，
Such is the nectar-like truth I have
一切众
realized.
生无冷
Were
啊
I to teach it,
是
no
无
one
尽
would
之物了
understand,
这
so I
个
will silently
是那
remain
个
in the
就是
forest.
大风光当中，就是已
This
经我们
one
一个
was
跟这个稍微有点差别，但是基本上
was
是意思是这样，
included in the Sutra, the Playing Full.
比较好一点啊，就刚才我念的藏文的这个基础。当时呢，佛陀刚开始的没有转法轮的。
So at
然后呢
first, the
就
Buddha
是后来
didn't turn the
就是
Dharma
这个
wheel.
这个天人啊，就是很多都请求之后呢，就
After
转了这个
many
三次法
requests
轮
from
那么第一
celestial
次法轮的
beings
话呢，就
and
是
many other
地狱
beings,
开始转，然
he
后呢
started
在这个
teaching
世界
the
当中呢
Deer
就有
Park.
光明
And
所以
that's
先
when
有
this
了这个
world
佛
then
然后呢
received
就
the
转法轮就是三转
light
法轮
of the
转正
Dharma.
法轮以后呢有了
So he
这个法
turned
有
the
了法
Dharma
以
wheel
后
3
的话呢
times, the first,
那
second,
些
and
人
third turning of the
自己
Dharma
的
wheel.
这个修行呢
And
然后
after
就是他们的这个
that,
相续就逐渐
people
靠
can
谱这样的话呢
practice
有这个
accordingly
慎重
to the
就是当然这个慎
three
重是比较
turnings of the Dharma wheel,
就我们平时
which
说的这个
forms
慎
the
重或者说
assembly
最
of the
主要的
noble
是
ones.
最后呢就是都菩提的就是这样的这个僧众
The
这是
Sangha
第二
who
个层
attained
然后有了这
realization.
个僧众以后的话那就是得到什么
After having such
程度的
group
这个
of
对如来藏
Sangha
的这个本体呢，就是智藏啊，就是智藏界，就是智藏界的话呢，因为那个有光明和这个空性
and
无二无别的
attainment
这
of
种
Buddha
智慧的
nature,
本性
the
啊
element
就
of
是那么
primordial
这个叫做
wisdom,
自然本质，就是这个自然本质呢，每一个众生都有
Ishi
藏
or
都
the
有的，这叫做
primordial
如来藏，
wisdom,
也叫做智藏。那么
or
有了这
the
个僧众的话呢，就是那么这个
the
对如来藏的
Buddha
这个障碍
nature
呢，就是逐渐迁出。对如来藏呢，就是有不同的这个了解，
after
这个
practice,
是
after
第二个层面。
practice
然后
accordingly,
然
then
后第三个、第
they'll
四
be
个
able
层面
to
然后这样不断的修行的话呢，就我们刚才讲的，就是最后
slowly
的话呢，就是
recover,
刚才知道的话
rediscover
呢，应
their
该是
Buddha nature.
就是佛转法轮以后才知道是我们众生
After
是如来藏，不然的话，
The
如果佛
turning
没有
of
转法
Dharma
轮的话，
wheel,
很多人都
it
确
is
实够呛，
then
就是有
the
点
sentient beings
就怎么
understood
说
that
就是比较
all
麻
of
烦
us have the Buddha nature, because
这种
if
说法有点
not understanding
最
this,
终
it
的
could
话呢，
be
就是
rather
如果
difficult
这
for
个
people to
三个
realize
圣
it.
季节的修行呢，就是这样以后的话呢，那么就是我们的这个课程呢，就是
After
慢慢就
practicing
显出来
for
你对清净
many
如来
eons,
这个呢，就是叫做是这个
the defilement could be
真如智慧
purified,
啊，就真如
and
智慧呢，也就是说是
primordial
大彻大
wisdom
悟，就是是
can
这个
be
真觉菩
then
提或者殊胜菩提啊，就是殊胜菩提
recovered.
然后有了这个以后呢，那他的这个功德
Or
的
it
这
could
个
be
智
the
慧
great
呢，也就是
enlightenment.
说势力啊，就是理等，
That is the
刚才
supreme
讲势
enlightenment.
力啊，就是然后事物啊，
And
四法
then
不
the
空法就是
powers,
等等，就是
the
这
10
些
powers,
功德呢
the
就出
four
现。然后有了
fearlessness,
功德的话呢，就是具足
and
这些
so
功德
on
之
could
后的话呢
be，
让这个承办者呢
possessed
就
by the
让
one
承
who
办者
attained
的
a great
这个
enlightenment.
这些众生啊，就是可以受
After you
饶
have
益。
such
所以
powers,
说
you
呢，我
can
们这个本来的这个
benefit
次第
sentient
啊，先
beings.
有了这个佛，然后有了法，然
So
后
the
有了
method,
什么
so the
僧众，
system,
有了僧众
the
以后呢，
sequence
就
goes
进一
as
步的认识
the
到我们
Buddha,
的
then the
什么
Dharma,
这个如
and
来藏的
after
这
the
个
turning
就是
of the
佛性
Dharma,
啊，就是对佛性的这
the
个
assembly
怎么
practice
样达到这
accordingly,
个
they can
实地
then
之间的这个了知。最后呢，就是
attain
就
the
是最
Buddha
后呢，就
nature
是
and
得
the
到这个
element of
那么有了这个
primordial
菩提的
wisdom
这样
and
的这个
finally
了解之后
attain
呢，
supreme
下面的这个
enlightenment.
功德和事业呢，就是自然而然出现。
And
所以这样的这个
once
次第呢
attain
是非
supreme
常的
enlightenment,
有逻
the
辑性的啊，就是有这样的
the
这种
quality and
就
activities
因为
will
我们学
naturally
习
be
之后呢，就是
fulfilled.
大家也
So
应
it is
该明白，就是这个道
very
理。所以
logical,
这样的话
this
呢，
this
就是
sequence.
就是不是讲到这里了？
Maybe we'll stop here today. Come on, cheers.
今天那个他们翻译的人让我
Today
喝
the
点水我忘了
translators
现在在喝
wanted me to drink more water, but I forgot it until then.
他们翻译语速比较快。
I speak rather
他们
fast,
喘不过
and
气来
the interpreters
可不可以
couldn't
喝水
breathe,
我现在
so
喝
they asked me to drink water.